this executive order. Now, we have a tiny bit of clarity from the Biden administration in the United States as to its thoughts related to the new wave of technological innovation that we call cryptocurrency. Now, is it bullish? Bitcoin took a huge jump yesterday, and the market seemed to think so, but is it really? We'll get into that. Also, let's talk about the number one predictor of wealth as today. Today is just the right day for that. Also, we have a lot in the news that we want to cover. Also, one of our Telegram community members asked if 2022 is behaving a lot like 2020. And as I thought about it, he is on to something. So if we have time, I'd like to get into the similarities there as well, though it's an action-packed day. So welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and are looking for a real investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking this video and subscribing with the all notifications bell enabled. Special note, I'm not a financial advisor. I am a crypto investor myself, sharing with you how I think about the crypto market, specific crypto projects I like. Now, I do own or plan to own most of what I talk about on this channel because I don't talk about projects I don't believe in. Special thanks to our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. There is a link below to our Patreon if that interests you. We also want to thank OneChain, who is one of our strategic relationships that give us some OneChain to give away to our audience. That spice in a little bit of fun in our week. So thank you so much. Make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. Let's welcome our producer, D-Money, joining us.
Hey, what up, Jay? Good to see you again.
Yeah.
I'm loving being able to do this remotely a little bit more often. We had a bit of snow and stuff, and so it's nice to be able to not have that stress in our lives. And yeah, it's cool that this technology exists. What's up? Chris just said, hey, afternoon all. Loving Mario Muslim. Let's go Navy SEALs of crypto. Yeah, let's go, guys.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, man, I'm excited to break down this. Truth be told, like, I didn't have a ton of time to go through the executive order. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I love doing the show, right? Like, I'm just like, oh, cool. Like, well, I'm going to see what Jay thinks, and we're going to go through it. And
we'll step through the different paragraphs. Yeah. And I'll break it down simply what it was. There's some bullish things in there. There's some bearish things, and some of it we kind of expected.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, yeah, let's get the party started.
Let's do it. Join me, Rainmakers. It was fun to see Bitcoin take off last night like a rocket. I'm curious in the chat to see what you were thinking as Bitcoin took off. Do you feel that that's mostly related to the information, kind of Janet Yellen leaked out related to Biden's executive order, which didn't actually fully come out till today, but last night she probably didn't get the memo that it wasn't to be released yet, and she released her notes related to it and her statement related to it, and there's some bullish things in there, and Bitcoin absolutely took off. Or do you think that takeoff was more related to the bounce up from the NASDAQ? It does, for some reason, stocks and cryptocurrency, especially the NASDAQ or tech stocks, do have some correlation. I think over time that correlation will probably lessen, but if you think about it, cryptocurrencies, what are they? They're definitely tech innovation. They're just not necessarily stocks. They have some correlation to stocks, but I think that will lessen over time, especially specific cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin don't need to have much correlation to the NASDAQ. All right. So you may be asking yourself, if you haven't read through it, what is in the Biden executive order and what does it really mean? Well, it gives us a strong indication of where the Biden White House is at related to crypto. If you read people's words, it will give you an idea of what their actions might be. But actions are actually a much stronger tell of someone's real beliefs. Signing this executive order is an action, and we'll get a real feel for Biden's White House as well as the political party in power in the U.S. and their true actions in the coming months. I think Elizabeth Warren does give us an indicator, at least of the far left of the Democrat Party's feelings related to crypto. I don't think they like it very much at all, but we'll see how this all plays out. It'll be really interesting to see. Now, we are going to talk some about politics in this thing because politics do relate to crypto, because politicians have power over the direction, at least over their own country's direction. And some countries have power that projects beyond their own borders, especially the US, which is one of the most powerful countries in the world. And so, absolutely, there is some politics that you have to keep in mind. Now, back to Elizabeth Warren. Note what is at the heart of what Elizabeth Warren doesn't like about it. She doesn't like that there aren't people verifying who is sending to who, as she says it, who is sending to who, and that they can't control or shut off the flow. So before we get into this executive order and we step through it, I just want to play this clip because note there are some in her party that feel this way. And so we're going to try sharing the audio. So hopefully this comes through without an echo, but let me know if there is an echo. This is the first time through our software that we're sharing audio like this.
Here's the thing.
Hey Jay, go ahead, pause it real quick, man. I don't think that the audio is on. I was trying to unmute it, but it said it wasn't letting me do it.
Let me try unmuting it. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
And let me just rewind it just a bit back to where she starts.
And finance its illegal missile programs. Here's the thing. The whole point of crypto is that it allows someone to conduct financial transactions without having to go through the traditional banking system or traditional financial intermediaries. Right now, millions of transactions are taking place that are completely unregulated with no one verifying who gets what. And that means that while sanctions can make it very difficult for Russian companies, political leaders, and billionaires to move money around in the traditional financial system, there is another shadow, unregulated world that they can turn to. Crypto poses a variety of threats to financial stability, to investor protection, to our environment. But crypto is also providing a new way for countries to sanction-proof themselves. Cracking down on crypto is a critical piece of holding Russia accountable for its aggression. We can't fool around any longer. We need to get new crypto rules in place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tree is trying to.
So what
we're all gonna die.
Yeah, right. So it's interesting.
Not
Warren,
a single positive thing.
Right. So, oh my gosh, crypto. Do note that what is the heart of it that she doesn't like? She likes that there isn't someone verifying who is sending to who, and they can't control, in other words, shut off the flow. So U.S. politicians are worried, and that there is an exchange of value happening outside of their control. And this does substantially worry certain people. Now, why? Why would this worry certain people? To some, power and control is everything. So Elizabeth Warren has been saying this for a while. She's currently saying it related to Russia, because one of the things they did to sanction Russia is they didn't just shut off to the oligarchs their ability to spend. They actually shut off the Russian people. Now, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. I actually don't have an opinion as to what I believe about shutting off stuff to the Russian people. I'm still taking in information to process what I think about that. That isn't an action that I expected. And senators like Elizabeth Warren are really mad that certain cryptocurrency exchanges didn't shut off access to all Russians. And I'm not 100% sure what I think about that. I'm still processing that. But do you think the U.S. should have that kind of control, that if they don't like the actions of something, and combined with other countries, they can go and get cryptocurrency exchanges to shut off access to anybody from a certain country? That's a lot of power. While you're thinking about that, how dare you, Jay? Politicians are not power hungry, says Abe. You're right. They are not at all. What was I thinking? Now, let's look back to the executive order, because this was really interesting. And politicians are often very smart creatures. They know even if they have policies or ideas that are different from what the general public would expect, they usually dance around it. And so let's look at the executive order. And first, this first paragraph has some really interesting things. First, it acknowledges the huge explosive growth and that 16% of adult Americans have invested or traded or used cryptocurrencies. Do you find it interesting they threw that in first? Why is that thrown in and perhaps first? Possibly so that members of the president's own party understand that though they might not know much about crypto, because what is the average age of a U.S. congressman or senator? Can we agree it's probably well above 60, maybe even reaching 70 years old, especially in the Senate? That though they might not know much about crypto, a significant portion of the U.S. voter base does. And that if they don't keep that in mind, at the forefront of their mind, it can really impact re-election chances for senators and congressmen, as there is an election coming up later this year in the U.S. Another way to say this is this genie is out of the bottle. So I did find it very interesting that they led with that discussion. It means that likely Mike Novogratz, who has good ties to the tech industry out of San Francisco, which has really, really good ties with the Democrat Party, or perhaps other crypto investors that are very dialed in with the Democrat Party, had a talk with the Biden administration and warned them, don't come down hard on crypto or it will doom the Democrat Party's political chances. The second paragraph focuses also on what I think Mike Novogratz would have talked to the White House about, that this is a huge tech innovation sector. And let's go to the second paragraph here. The rise in digital assets creates an opportunity to reinforce American leadership in the global financial system and at the technological frontier, but also a substantial implication for consumer protection, financial stability, national security, and climate risk. The United States must maintain technological leadership in this rapidly growing space, supporting innovation while mitigating the risk for consumers, businesses, and the broader financial system and the climate. It must play a leading role in international engagement and global governance of digital assets consistent with democratic values and the U.S. global competitiveness. Sounds pretty bullish, right? Especially when you couple that in with the first paragraph. Forgot to actually read some of it. The first two were worth reading out loud. And in the first paragraph, they go into digital assets, including cryptocurrencies, have seen an explosive growth in recent years, surpassing a $3 trillion market cap last November, up from 14 billion just 5 years prior. Surveys suggest that around 16% of adult Americans, approximately 40 million people, have invested in, traded, or used cryptocurrencies. Over 100 countries are exploring or piloting central bank digital currencies, a digital form of a country's sovereign currency. Now, if you think about it, 40 million people are trading with cryptocurrencies. And if you're old enough to be trading cryptocurrencies, you're probably old enough to vote. And so that is heavy on the politicians' minds, right? Is like, how many people voted in the last presidential election in the U.S.? Was it Biden got 65, 70, 72 million votes, and Trump got somewhere under that, but close. So 140, 150 million total voters.
That's my memory is like 73 to 70 or something like that.
So imagine if all 40 million people holding cryptocurrency are politically active and vote. This is like the elephant in the room, right? Because they're old enough to vote. And you think about how many people voted in the last presidential election, which usually gets the highest turnout. Yeah, on the forefront of their mind is that number right there, and which is why it was really helpful to share that. And so this genie is out of the bottle, but they do want to put it back, especially some regulators, and not just in the one party that's in power in the U.S. right now. I imagine there are many in the other party as well as we know other politicians around the world, because some of their thoughts is, because I know even the previous president, Trump, wasn't necessarily favorable on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. He said he didn't like it and he was concerned about it. Why? Because it does take away some power, right, from them. Now, you'll often hear about governments like politicians that are concerned about it. They say they want to get control of it. And let's go into like the third paragraph. They will sign an executive order, and then we go into these little bullet point headlines, right? So these are their thoughts or the measures that they want to focus on. Protect U.S. and global financial stability, right? So they want to mitigate the illicit finance and security risks posed by illicit use of digital assets. So that's essentially government speak for, we want to get control of it so that we can define who is a good and bad actor and take away the ability of bad actors to use it. The second paragraph on their goals is to protect U.S. and global financial stability and mitigate systemic risk. Now, that's mitigating it. It's also government speak for get control of it, right? So essentially, they've taken two paragraphs to say the same thing. Hey, we want to get control over this. Third paragraph, they say protect U.S. and global financial stability. Oh, that's what I just read, right? There we go. Mitigate the illicit finance and national security risk posed by the illicit use of digital assets. Get control over it. Promote U.S. leadership in technology and economic competitiveness to reinforce U.S. leadership in the global financial system. Well, in other words, promote U.S. leadership. Direct Department of Commerce. In this, they talk about directing the Department of Commerce to encourage commercial ventures in digital assets. Now, this paragraph is bullish. So I'd say the first two paragraphs were pretty bullish. It sounded like, okay, they get this and then it's going this way and they're encouraging it. The next 3 or 4 points on this, they're like, well, we want to get control over it, get control over it, get control over it. And then they're finally like, okay, we're going to direct the Department of Commerce to encourage commercial ventures in digital assets. So I would say this part is bullish because if they're encouraging ventures in this to grow, that is positive. Next paragraph is promote U.S. leadership in technology and economic competitiveness to reinforce U.S. leadership in the global financial system. Now, what they don't say in this, that possibly they understand, but if they do understand, they don't generally talk about it, is Ronald Reagan once said about the government, and he was right on this, whether you like Reagan or not. He said there's two actions the government can take related to technology. They can choose to get in the way, or they can choose to get out of the way. I am seeing a lot of get in the way in this and a little bit of get out of the way in this. So that will be interesting. You know how you encourage U.S. innovation? Well, if you think about how they encouraged U.S. innovation in the early 1990s, when the tech sector and the dot-com boom really took off and the U.S. took a dominant position in that boom, well, what happened? It was during an era of deregulation and of the government not regulating, but getting out of the way through deregulation of the whole phone industry. And so it was an era of government getting smaller and less say and less control over and letting businesses experiment with things and try things. And then market failures would be not rewarded and market successes were rewarded. And it was an area where the tech sector in the US really boomed. And that was an era of government not getting in the way, but out of the way. So how will they really act? How will the Biden administration really act? We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of, hey, we're going to jump in and get in the way so that we can get it under control. And there's a little bit of, oh, we're going to get out of the way and encourage this kind of growth. They have an article down here, a paragraph, promote equitable access to safe and affordable financial services. Actually, isn't that the whole point of cryptocurrency? What the hell does that statement by them really even mean? Perhaps it's probably just some political correctness thrown in to sound fair. But crypto exactly already does that, allows safe and affordable access to financial services anywhere in the world. That's actually the whole freaking point behind crypto. Interesting that they threw that in there. Support technological advances and ensure responsible development and use of digital assets. Well, responsible development and use of digital assets. I mean, what are they talking about? I remember seeing some audits of the government's own control over their own assets, and they like lose billions of dollars of assets all the time. But I guess we could all be happy that they're concerned about everybody else's responsible use of assets. I just see this as another paragraph of we kind of want to take control over this so we can control the flow of everything. Then we get to really, and they save this for very last, which is interesting, explore a U.S. central bank digital currency by placing urgency on research and development of a potential United States central bank digital currency. Now, I'm all for central banks having digital currencies as long as there are huge breaks in place and they have an inability to shut off people's flow or use short of a court order. And particularly if there's some kind of thing preventing a president from being able to write an executive order to shut off people's use. Because my concern is if they don't do this, then political opponents can get targeted. And whether it's this administration, another administration down the road, even if you absolutely love the current administration, who's to say a following administration isn't a tyrant? And if they're given the power to then target and deem their political opposition as bad for the country and then target their finances, a central bank digital currency can make it so they can immediately shut down all their political oppositions access to the banking system. And this is my big concern and why I like the power that crypto gives to the people outside of government's hands. So is this order bullish? Well, more bullish actually than I expected, but I do expect some of this is just window dressing because the Biden administration and other politicians are aware that this genie is out of the bottle. And their main goal is harnessing it into a financial system that they can control, that they can decide to exclude, freeze, and even take the funds of anyone they deem as a bad actor, which may include a 70-year-old lady who gives to a truckers rally. Notice that they lead with all the good, fluffy, make you feel better stuff, and that they then use government speak for, we need to make sure that we protect you, which is an argument every politician makes as they take away freedoms and make things worse for you. Stalin used it. Hitler used it. Notice even Justin Trudeau even used it when they had the crackdown on those terrorists known as truckers in the truckers rally. Make no mistake, crypto threatens existing power structures, and those power structures will fight back. They will even use words such as protect consumers, financial stability, encourage equitable diversity. They aren't dumb, not at all, but they do think that we're dumb and that with the flowery words, we won't realize what their real goal is. Bringing it in line with the existing financial structure, as Elizabeth Warren clearly laid out, where we have seen they can shut off access to the financial system anytime they can get someone to believe you are a bad actor. Now, would Trump have done it any differently? That isn't clear at all. In fact, it seems like probably or possibly he might have. Trump wasn't exactly for crypto either because it takes power away from the political class and puts it directly in our hands. And these politicians very much like the existing system, and they don't want to let go of that power. So do note, they want their power back, and they're going to find sneaky ways to sell it to us. So that's my thoughts on what this executive order really says and means. In some ways, it was bullish. I think it was more bullish than I thought it would be because they realize vividly, probably because some of the people in the crypto industry have talked to them, how many voters in the U.S. are using this, and that it can affect political re-election, which is always on the mind of every politician, right? I'm curious to see what all your thoughts are. I'm going to start reading through section Crimson Tide is coming. I missed the context of that. Okay. Don't believe news during the fog of war. It's a theater after all, and the West is an unparalleled propaganda machine, Marcus. Yeah, thank you for sharing that thought. That is interesting. There is a lot of propaganda that comes from the U.S. in the form of news that gets there's a lot of power centralized in the U.S. and in the U.S. news agencies. Demonic Marcus Di Giovanni said, if you think about it, the Russian people are the ones that are going to suffer the most, not the Russian government. That's absolutely true. And that's what gives me pause about shutting off access to the Russian people, because what do? Many of them are not for the war in Ukraine, yet they're paying a really high price. And so I guess I'm just new to thinking of being able to shut off a country's citizens' access to their financials. And it's clear that Russia is acting as a very bad actor. We all knew that the leader in Russia, we didn't trust him at all. And so Do I think that the pros outweigh the cons? Because there's definitely some pros to doing that. Do I think it outweighs the cons in that there's a lot of innocent people that might not even support their leader that are now paying a very high price without access to the financial system? I don't know whether the pros outweigh the cons on that. I'm still kind of absorbing information.
But Jay, what are the pros? I mean, it like if they shut off the the Russians' access to their own the citizens, like what in theory, I think that the hope is like, okay, well, that puts a lot of pressure on Putin to end this, but like, are we sure that Putin cares what happens to his own citizens?
It destabilizes his country, more likely leads to riots and other things,
right? Yeah,
which then further lessens his powers, maybe even attacks on government things, and really destabilizes his country by making his own citizens pay a high price for his bad actions. And so that's some pros to it, that it does put further pressure on. But can I give these politicians a secret that they already know, that they don't want to discuss, most of them? Look, if the U.S. ramps up oil production like crazy, and they can, and they become a net exporter of energy, that is the fastest way to put massive pressure on Putin. But Biden and Elizabeth Warren do not want to talk about that. And it doesn't even have to harm the Russian people directly, because they don't necessarily benefit from high oil prices, though Russia, or those in control like Putin, absolutely benefit from massively high oil prices. In fact, with his war, he's probably making more money than ever before with his oil. And just because the US isn't going to buy his oil, he's going to easily be able to sell it to China. He's going to be able to sell it to other countries that don't care about sanctions that the US put on things. So they'll still have plenty of markets for their oil. And so that further hurts, it hurts the US citizens. But if Biden were completely serious about this, wouldn't he then order like US production to ramp up by getting the regulators out of the way? And they say, oh, we have all these leases on land that aren't being used. That's a fake argument, because they aren't giving the permits necessary. So yes, these leases are out there. Some of it's land that it's too expensive to drill. And so those aren't going to get used, because businesses are predictable. If they could make profit drilling there, they would. So if they're not drilling there, it's because one of two reasons. One, they don't have the permits necessary to then drill, even though they have a lease. Or number two, there's no oil there worth drilling, that if their extraction cost is $200 a barrel and oil's trading at $120 a barrel, no company with any sense of anything is going to drill there. If those two things weren't in the way, they would already be drilling there. And so that red herring from the speaker, whatever her name is, where she's like, oh, there's all these leases not being used and corporations need to do. And it's like, corporations are so predictable. I'm not saying corporations are a good or bad thing. Some are good, some are bad, but they're predictable. And if there was profit to be made there, they'd already be doing it. And so if they did go that direction, that would hurt Russia. That's the single biggest thing the US and other countries could do, is further exploit oil resources and start extracting them and drive up their own energy independence. And all of a sudden, Putin's massive, that's the only leverage he has. He's a third world country with an oil, like with a gas station. And that's where he makes so much of his money, is on the oil resources. And if they drove the price for oil down to $30 a barrel, Putin would go broke. But they won't do that. And maybe it's because people within the left, they would lose too many of their own voters. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. The U.S. isn't necessarily decreasing its oil consumption. What it has done is it's tied its hands behind their backs for oil production, while putting on all these other pressures. If they untied those hands and produced massive amounts of oil, that would actually hurt Putin worse than anything else in the world would. But they're not going that direction that I've seen so far. You will see mounting pressure for the U.S. to go that way. And we'll see. I mean, currently oil's going, what is the price in the U.S.? Is it around, and it probably depends on where in the country you're at, but is anywhere between $3 to $5.50 or something, $6 a barrel or per gallon of gas.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen in California over $5 a gallon, just on the news and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much over $4 a gallon.
And it'll probably keep going up. Now, is this good or bad for crypto? It's good for crypto in that if you think about what crypto really is, and I've talked about this, but it's been a while, cryptocurrency is an insurance policy against fiat going to zero. It's an alternative store of value. Now, it brought about, and that's specifically Bitcoin and possibly third generation blockchains. Now, some of the other stuff is essentially like a NASDAQ stock in that it's tech innovation, that if that tech really does well, that token will probably do really well. But the basis of cryptocurrency was a hedge against fiat going to zero, which since the history of time, fiat does eventually always go to zero. And it's well on that road. Now, is the end of that road 100 years from now? Is it 10 years from now? Is it 300 years from now? We don't know. A lot of that is based on decisions politicians make presently. Although the last year is a little bit worried towards that fiat eventually completely devaluing, and cryptocurrency is a hedge against that. There's two really competing things on, no matter who the president is right now, that any president would be thinking about, which is, okay, do I allow interest rates to rise, which will curb the inflation that's happening massively right now because of the massive printing of money? And any president would want to say, no, I don't want interest rates to rise because then the economy will crumble while I'm president, and it will diminish my reelection chances or my party's reelection chances. And so they're going to be trying to tell the Federal Reserve, don't raise interest rates. The Federal Reserve knows it needs to raise interest rates because that will kind of bring back some sanity, but that comes with tightening the belt and makes things hard. So they probably are going to start raising interest rates, though they'll probably only raise them 0.25% coming up and slowly taper it in. So I do think we're going to see inflation run absolutely crazy, which is actually going to increase stock prices again. And I think lead to this greater leg of the bull run coming. And then possibly the real estate market, the stock market, and possibly the crypto market all then tank together, because at some point some tightening the belt has to come in, or fiat will go to zero because it's being so massively printed that it's massively devaluing. And the last benchmark where they tested it was at 7.5% interest rate, and they actually changed the way numbers were counted to make it look like it was only 7.5%. It was actually higher than that, but they changed some of the things that they were counting the prices on to be things that had gone up less, so that number would look like less. And so the actual inflation numbers were higher even at that benchmark. And this one, they've gone even crazier. So I'm curious to see what the numbers are. I'd be really interested to see what the exact numbers really are. But someone I was listening to said the actual increase in money supply in the market over the last year and a half is like 30% increase, which is crazy. And cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin, is a hedge against that, because though you might have more money in the bank, that more money buys you less. And so Bitcoin is a more fixed store of value, that even if fiat deflates to like massively horrible numbers, that Bitcoin will hold value somewhat similar to what gold will do. And so that's why even if inflation is really high, it's a strong thing for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
CPI doesn't even include food inflation, definitely double digits. Agreed, Dub. Hey, Dub, thanks for joining us. This is friend Dub Digital, and I frequently watch his channel. I love his analysis. He's got a very fun way that he delivers his analysis. Does a lot of live streams these days. Thanks for joining us, Dub.
Yeah, super cool. I'm curious to know your thoughts on Nick Scott's comment. Hey, Jay, even though the order is only moderately bullish, I think it's probably much more bullish in reality when compared to the price impact of the fear of the order coming in advance.
Okay. The fear of the order.
So yeah, his point is I think most people feared the worst.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that people expected it would be worse. And so then because their expectations were priced in when it happened, it pumped the market. I think you nailed it on the head, right?
Yeah, me too.
And that's why the market pumped. And they led with two bullish things in that statement. Everyone kind of suspected, because of Janet Yellen's actions over the past year, that they were going to try to clamp down and control, much as they controlled public utilities in the US for a long time. And it wasn't until they actually kind of backed off and let technology flourish that the internet age came about, and so many other innovations, and to where you can call people on the other side of the world through the computer for free. So I wish they would back off and they would have very limited regulation. That probably isn't going to be the Biden administration's path, but possibly more closer to that than many people expected. Well, so, I liked sharing that clip, and I'll probably share clips more often. There is some bullish things in the news, but before we get into that, I like to just keep investing in myself and listening to other smart people. And I was listening to Ray Dalio, and he was breaking down. He has a great video on YouTube going through like different some of the different nations that rose to huge amounts of power, and including the Dutch and the Dutch East India Company, and then the British with the Royal East India. I forget what they named their massive capitalist arm that was their shipping company. It was, I forget, the Royal Navy East India Company. It was kind of like where they projected their military, but also their economic power. And then he goes through the US and he's talking about China. And what's interesting is what actually is the leading indicator of a civilization coming into massive power was the education of the citizens. And now, as I was thinking about that, the number one indicator, another book that I read years ago, the number one indicator of whether a person will be financially successful down the road had everything to do with how much education they continue to work on themselves. And there is a book written by the guy who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. His name is Dale Carnegie. And he would make a challenge to each one of his students. And he really got started teaching, I think, in like a community college. And he would teach classes for those that were coming back to get a degree, that were already in the workforce. They were no longer 18. They were in the workforce, and he was trying to help provide education for them so they could greatly increase their income over time. And he would make a challenge to his students, because what he realized over years teaching this, that the number one indicator was how much people spent and how much time people spent on continuing their own education. So he would make a challenge every year. He only had one student take him up on that challenge, and he challenged them to spend 10% of their income on education every year. And they said, if you do this for 10 years, you'll become a millionaire. Just watch. There was one who did it. And I remember the story. I think the guy was fairly like not young anymore. He might've been even like, was it 37, maybe later 20s, but he was only making like around 30 to 35,000 a year at the time. He had his career had kind of stalled out for a long time, and he was going back to school, but he decided to take him up on that offer. And within 10 years, he actually was a millionaire. Why? Because he invested in his own growth and education. So though we look at these bigger political things and can we change politicians ourselves? We can have an influence, I do believe. But the biggest influence we can have is taking control of our own lives through continuing to grow our education, because that's the number one indicator of whether you're going to be wealthy. Now, I happen to think we are in the best place to be investing in one of the best times in all of history, and that, this rising tide is going to raise a lot of boats, especially those that are patient. But don't underestimate the value of continuing your own education on a daily and weekly time frame. Though we don't have to spend, it's just a little bit that adds up over a lot of time. All right, let's look at what time we are. Cool. Why don't we jump into some news? And I would like to get a better feel for where the comments are at as we go through some news. Let's take a look at this. This comes from Stardust Runner, gave us some good articles that were in the news, and I really like this one. Nashville joins crypto craze with Valkyrie partnership. Now, I don't know about you. I had no idea who the Valkyries were, but they're a women's Major League Soccer team. So what is this crypto partnership? Essentially, one of their sponsors, in their club sponsorship deal with Valkyrie Investments. Oh, I guess it's Valkyrie Investments sponsored them. And that investment is being paid entirely in Bitcoin. And see, we're continuing to see the adoption of cryptocurrency used as a store of value and being exchanged as a store of value. Because isn't that what this is? They're paying it entirely in Bitcoin. So I guess, what's the name of their Minnesota United, I guess, is the name of their team, and Valkyrie Investments is the name of the company. So they're going to be wearing a patch on their sleeves.
It's Nashville SC is and they're in the MLS. So it's not, I think that you saw the ponytail and thought maybe it was a women's team, but it's a men's team.
Oh, that's so funny. Shows you how much I follow football, right? Or American soccer. Nashville SC players. Yeah, I thought it was Major League Soccer. Yeah, I was thinking, boy, I got that all wrong. Interesting that they're paying entirely in crypto, which is the interesting part about this news piece. Here was something I saw, and this is probably on the Democrat Party and the Republican Party's minds in the U.S., definitely in the Canadian upcoming elections. It will have an impact. Korea has been very crypto focused for a while. And they say the crypto vote could be key as South Korea chooses its next president. The existing president has actually been very much clamping down on cryptocurrency, and that policy has not been very popular. They've even put caps on how much you can make through play to earn gaming and stuff, which is completely ridiculous. Why would you put caps in there? Why would you not want them to be able to make a bunch of money through playing this? Because then that increases the amount of money flowing into your economy. But whatever. So there's two people running against each other. The existing president, I guess, isn't rerunning, and he's been pretty anti-crypto. So the other two are competing to outdo one another with increasingly pro-crypto manifesto promises, which is interesting. And they say all of which would represent a major departure from the more crypto skeptic policies of the incumbent president Moon Jae-in administration. Under Moon, initial coin offerings in all their forms were outlawed, with play-to-earn crypto gaming also severely restricted, and crypto exchanges and wallet providers have been forced to abide by one of the strictest sets of regulatory protocols in the world. And I think this is existing politicians trying to clamp down and put in their control things, whereas politicians that haven't been elected yet realize the sentiment is more towards freedom and people being able to choose what control they want the government to have and not have. And so they're trying to win over voters by making, I guess, as they say, bigger and bigger promises as to how crypto friendly that they'll be. Both sides have been attempting to woo younger voters with pro-crypto policies. So, yeah, we'll see how this turns out. Great article going through this. And that's good to see. I imagine we're going to see more of this in the US, Canada, UK, and other countries too, because the youth is usually a target for both political parties and for all political parties, because they want to get a hold of that youth vote. Because as the youth start voting, they usually continue voting the way that they started for a long period of time. And so you'll see probably more political parties trying to woo these voters, especially because so much of the world is using crypto and that genie is solidly out of the bottle. And it's going to be really hard for those politicians to put it back in democracies where they have to be reelected. All right. Thailand approves tax relief for Bitcoin and crypto, which is really interesting. So they're relaxing some of their rules related to crypto, and the tax relief includes a 7% value-added tax and loss harvesting mechanism for taxes on cryptocurrency. Direct and indirect investments into startup companies will also receive tax breaks for 10 years if 2 or more years are invested into the startup. What's interesting is that they are, these other countries are getting it, that if they have pro-growth regulation on crypto that incentivizes investment in cryptocurrency adoption, that they're going to win huge market shares in the race for this. So the US a little bit behind the curve, though it seems like maybe they're starting to get it, that the US cannot put this genie back in the bottle, but they can decide how much the US is going to benefit from this tech boom that's going to happen. And if they get on board and they pass favorable legislation, they could benefit a whole lot. Otherwise, it's all going to go to Thailand, it's going to go to Portugal, it's going to go to El Salvador, and many other countries that are very crypto friendly, like Malta. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting as these politicians have to adapt to what their people want instead of the politicians being able to control what their people want. All right. A little bit of levity. Who ever played or watched the TV show Family Feud?
Me.
Yeah, like it was fun, right? For a number of years there, I watched it. And so what crypto has allowed through this project called Gamestar, which Steve Harvey is really involved with, is Gamestar is allowing these kind of games to be played at home in competition with others, right? And being able to detect who hit the buzzer first and other things. And so they're actually launching this project, and they're launching this game that you can buy at Target and take it home and essentially play it. And it interacts with blockchain as far as realizing who hit the button first and stuff. And we're going to see blockchain continue to come into the homes through stores like Target that people are already used to shop at. And so the complexity of getting involved in cryptocurrency has been holding a lot of people back, because like I was at dinner last night with my wife with some friends that we had met, and he's a medical doctor that's involved. He has his own tech industry on a new product that's coming out that's probably going to do billions of dollars in sales. Amazing what they've created. But their question was, well, so we're interested in cryptocurrency, we have no idea how to even get started, right? And isn't that what a lot of people are going through? They don't know, and so I said for them it'd be as simple as going to Coinbase and creating a wallet and being able to buy through Coinbase. I said it doesn't give you the power necessarily of holding your own cryptocurrency, but it's a system that's very similar to what you're used to, and you'd be able to have some exposure to cryptocurrency without also having the fear of keeping track of your 24 keywords that if you lost, you would then lose access to your wallet possibly. So it's within a framework that they're already used to in simplicity. So Family Feud is a framework that people are used to, and they can go and buy this game at Target, come home, play it, and actually be interacting with the blockchain without even realizing that they're interacting with the blockchain. And that's how cryptocurrency hits mass adoption, right? Remember in the old days when like phone calls, do you remember? I don't know who's old enough to remember this, but I remember my mom would call her sister, and she would only be able to talk for like 30 minutes once a month, because that call would cost like $100. And as the internet got deregulated and the innovations that came out of that, you could call people for free it was kind of hard, and you could use voice over IP, and it didn't work very good, but you could call for free or you could call for very, very cheap. And then today, like, you don't have to think about what you're using. You're just like, okay, if I use this, I don't even have to think about what technology I'm using. Okay, if I call them on Skype, it's free. If I call them using this, I can video call, and it's free. And that's as the internet continued to radically change communications to the point of you didn't have to think about what it was that was driving it. You just like, oh, there's this thing I can use on my phone, and if I use this to call people and video call, it's free. And that's how blockchain will change the world. And people don't have to think about it. They don't even have to know that they're utilizing blockchain or cryptocurrency. They just know it's made their life simpler and more cost effective, etc. And that's what will happen as blockchain continues to add value places to drive down prices and increase efficiency. And that those companies and those projects that do that, the value of their token should go crazy. All right, how are we doing in chat? 9 says lifelong learning. Fantastic. Great book. Yeah, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I really liked that. When I was at the university, I hadn't read that book. And what's funny is I was in this business and ethics class, and they would assign you to pick any book that you wanted to read and do a report on. And I picked that book and I read it and did a report on it, and I loved it. And what's funny is I was having a talk with the professor, and he said, "Man, I can't believe every semester 3 or 4 people pick the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, and they do the report on that, and it is the stupidest book out there." And I was like, "Oh, tell me why." And he's like, "Oh, it's probably just a short, easy read, and it's just a short book." It is a short book. It is an easy read, and it's so influential for those that like have some skills to learn from there. Now, what I like about the creator of that book is I love how he came about the information on how to win friends and influence people. And he writes a lot of different books. Came about because he was teaching these classes in a community college of what skills do people most need in order to increase their income earning, so that if they're taking my class, they actually get some benefit out of it. So it was kind of like a research project of him of what information can I give people that will most influence their earning potential. Isn't that what we want out of additional education? Exactly that. What things can I learn that will most influence my ability to earn more income through the amount of time I put into my work? Well, great. And so he wrote many books related to that, and his books are fantastic. So maybe the professor really didn't get the point of that, because I loved it and I don't regret reading that book and writing about it. What do you think about the Matic staking programs? I'm not familiar with what staking programs they have going on right now at all. In fact, I have to look into that. All right. My dad tells me all about the good old days and their party line out in the country. Ha ha ha. Party line. I
Yeah,
missed
I'm not
the
sure. I'm
context of
not
that.
sure. It must be something where maybe they had like a shared line that everybody had to use, like living way out in the country or something like that. That was my thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stardust Run says, I think people are happy to see that Yellen isn't going to be making the regulations by herself. Yep. I think that's extremely well said. Yeah, if Yellen were making the regulations, I think the U.S. Uh, position would really hurt themselves, right? They're not powerful enough to put this genie back into the bottle, but they can affect how much it benefits their own economy, or they can hurt how much it benefits. Like they can pass things that are detrimental to the U.S. economy, and that basically hand power over to other countries that run with this. What is happening, what's interesting, is I've talked to different project leaders and CEOs. So many of them are from the US, but they have totally moved to these other countries that are crypto friendly, and they're running them there. And they used to, be CEO of some company in the US, and many of them relocated outside the US years ago, and that they are running these projects. So the US still has influence through their people, but their people are moving to other countries, and some of them changing their citizenship to other countries. So hopefully the US takes note of that and stops trying to build walls to keep their people in, but build honey so that they can attract all the worker bees to be a good environment for the U.S. to really thrive. So, all right.
Hey Jay, getting back to Gamestar.
The party lines were shared phone lines that multiple people shared. Interesting. So they could all have a conversation at once. Yeah, what were you asking about Gamestar?
Oh yeah, just getting back to Gamestar. So, I mean, they've kind of branded themselves as they want to be like the Netflix of game night, and so I was a little bit surprised when the first thing that they did was release something in Target, and it's like $20 to buy. And I guess I'm just wondering what like how much you know about the project in terms of like how like the play to earn aspect is gonna exist and that sort of a thing.
I don't know that there's play to earn behind it so much as it's being sold as like a game where people buy and interact. I remember years ago I bought this game where then there was trivia question. You put in a DVD or whatever, and you'd answer these questions. So my guess is there's some kind of game that then I don't know if they scan a barcode and they can easily download it, but they're taking it through the complete backdoor to crypto. The existing crypto users would be like, hey, just give me a barcode that I can scan and download it, or tell me what app and I'll download it on my phone and play it, right? So they're going a very backdoor approach of taking this to people who aren't using crypto at all through a means that they're used to. Oh, yeah, game night. Let's buy, a Family Feud. We can play it at home. They don't even know that there's crypto driving this behind it. And I'm not aware of a play to earn aspect behind it, which is what the first question that comes to our mind when we're thinking games and crypto, right? I think this is a way that they can play at home with their family and possibly be even playing against others. And so it's really just using the internet at a higher level, which cryptocurrency allows, or what we call Web3, that blockchain and cryptocurrency allows. But I don't know that there's play to earn aspects of it. I haven't bought it yet. I've interacted with the team that's helping incubate them and get it rolling, and had a couple of chats just in Telegram with them, not even a voice chat about it. But I told them to keep me updated on this because I think it's really interesting. And so this tweet just came out not too long ago, and I read through it and I was like, really, really interesting. But I haven't bought it in order to see how it interacts and how it goes. And I think this is going to be also a work in progress, right? So they'll have some people buy it, and depending on how that goes, they'll probably make some changes because they want to roll out not just Family Feud, but a lot of the games that people are used to.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know much. I've barely started to kind of research it, but it does say like the G-Star token is acquired through competition wins or direct purchase, gifted transfers, NFT sales can be spent on. So it looks like they're trying to do that. On the white paper here, it's interesting on their site. Like I noticed that on Twitter, they don't have very many Twitter followers. They're like 2,500 Twitter followers.
It's because it's still very early.
Right. But they do have Ken Jennings is there, like essentially the new host of Jeopardy. Ken Jennings follows them, and they have, here's Damon John, who's on Shark Tank with a ton of followers. And that's what's so interesting about the project to me, is that, even though it is so early, they have these big influencers. Steve Harvey, I don't know how many followers that guy has, but I know it's a bunch, in the millions, like 7 million or something like that.
Yeah, so he's really popular and he's fun.
Yeah, for sure. So it seems like, a good entry point for a lot of people, like, mass adoption, that sort of a thing. So, just kind of showing again what this is on their website of like, all right, here's, kind of Netflix in the background, like, or not Netflix, but like, here's our smart TV, here's Gamestar. And then these are the games that we can play. So, my thought was that it was going to be some type of like a subscription, like $8 a month, $10 a month. And then we can play all these games. Seeing it might have been the game you were referring to, where you put a DVD in and ask some questions. But like, so, I mean, if they've got anyway, I was surprised to see it's like, I buy this one game for $20 at Target. I was like, I didn't think that's how they were going to go.
That might be their lead-in strategy. And then, there's no reason you can't just download this on your phone and go that route. So they're probably positioning it from these multiple vectors, and it's still very early days, right? Like, they're probably not dialing up the advertising or anything yet, essentially to have some beta testing by people playing it and stuff. And then as they really get a feel for it, then they'll put major weight behind it to see the Twitter followers take off and the people talking about it take off.
Yeah. It's an interesting project for sure, though. I love board games and games in general, so I've got my eye on this one for sure. Looking for what the TG is going to be. We got about a minute left. Fried Food Rob says, "Are you going to buy any of the early access NTFU packs from Recur? Know nothing about NCAA sports. Might be an easy way to get in. I don't know anything about that. Do you?"
No, a little bit. I'll have to look into an update. I did do some digging into Recur not long ago. It's been a little bit though. And like, I don't know about you guys, but my brain turns to mush. I'm always looking at so many different things. After a while, sometimes they start mixing together. And so I would have to freshen my, like, get a refreshing look at it. I put some notes by it to like, okay, look at this one again later. So it's probably a good time for me to take a look at it. Maybe later today or something. Now, in the audience, if you're ready to be a rainmaker and join the Navy SEALs of crypto and level up your crypto game, let's do it. Hit that subscribe button and the all notifications button. This contrarian approach that we talk about, coupled with fundamental analysis, you add in a lot of patience, works very, very well over time. Look forward to seeing you. We do these live streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific, and we do a special Wednesday evening live stream at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, which we will have later this evening. So join us for that. We have a special guest who's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to pre-record part of that and then have the main thing live so you can join us. So really looking forward to that. Remember, at the end of the day, no rain means no gain.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you're good. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, to leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.